What's going on, you guys? Gaming Addict here, man. Well, Lord Addict, that's what you guys know me as. Coming at you with another Addict Show. We talk about the past, present, and future of gaming. Big Cloud's going to be mad late, like 30 minutes late. He'll be here momentarily. But, right now, it's just being Dirt. Dirt currently is having a call. He's having a phone call with the leader of the PlayStation. Fanboyism. He's apologizing for how we gonna act today. He's apologizing for how we're gonna act today. But how you guys doing, man? How you guys doing? I see the chat. We got 50 people in here. 56 actually just updated. I appreciate everyone for coming through here. I feel like the lighting on my thing's a little off today. I don't know if that's just me. I don't know why my Elgato light isn't registering. It's kind of weird. Remind me later. It's not on my Steam Deck or anything. There's Dirt. I told the panel that she was on a phone call with the leader of the PlayStation fanboys, apologizing for our behavior today.
Yeah, man. I had to give them a disclaimer. Say, look, guys, you might not like some of the things that's being said on today's show. Just if you can, just disregard what we're saying. Just keep on doing what you're doing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. See, I don't do that though. When I call the PlayStation people, I say deal with it. Like, because they tell me to deal with games, this and that. No, you gonna deal with what's happening next, man. So like I said, I appreciate everyone coming through here where we talk about the past, present, future of gaming. This is the Addict Show. Got my co-host with me, Dirt Griggity. What's going on, Dirt? What you been playing?
Yeah, surprisingly, what I've been playing? I actually booted up The Last of Us 2 because when I completed it in 2020, I kind of just beat it in one weekend. Just kind of ran through it so I can do a review. But this time I'm going to take my time with it. And, that's what I've been playing. I also been trying to finish Lost Judgment and Forza Horizon 5 DLC, the Hot Wheels DLC. So those are three games I've been kind of playing right now.
That's what's up, man. I've actually been playing this turn-based game. It's called, let me see what it's called. It's called Sympathy of War, of the War. So it's pretty much like, it's kind of a weird game. It's hard to explain what this game is. It's like, I would say a good, accurate analogy for it's like Final Fantasy Tactics and that Griezmann game, the 16-bit out game. It's kind of like both of those. I can't remember exactly what that game's called. It's like Groom something, but it came to Game Pass. It was actually a popular game in Game Pass, but that's pretty much what I've been playing. I broke my keyboard. Well, I didn't break it. This 10-ton mic broke it. So what happened? I was on Addict. I was on the ILP. So people were complaining naturally, like they always do, about not hearing me. So I was moving the mic to get closer to me, like this, like so.
Right.
And it came off the desk.
Damn.
And then this bottom part here slammed straight into my keyboard. And and then this part here, like the part that like I turned to like adjust, it hit my mouse. It double killed the man. Like, if anything, it would have been nice to have the dude that did the announcement for Halo. And just the moment I did, all you hear is double kill. Like, it was that serious, man. But appreciate everyone coming through, man. Like I told you, we actually got a pretty good show for you guys. We got PlayStation and Call of Duty. Apparently, PlayStation's worried about what's going to happen with that Call of Duty post acquisition with Microsoft. I ain't gonna lie to you, I'd be worried too. I'm not gonna lie. Then we got superhero games at Xbox. Just a little fun topic I came together on, what studios we would see, like, because I feel like everyone's making a superhero game but Xbox, and I feel like it needs to be changed. And then Roundhouse they actually got a new studio, and it looks like Redfall's development team is helping them with it. So obviously we'll put a little bit of everything. These are our general walking paths. This is like the little wooden planks on a bridge that you walk through. Clearly, most of the time, we fall through one and we just talk about random shit for like 10 minutes. But we trying to get better. Kinda. But, you know, so, you know, I really, first off, I want to address, I really appreciate, you know, the support the Addict Show's been getting here. You know, we've been anywhere from 25 to 5,000 views a week. It's getting pretty good. Like I said, I do plan on adjusting how the podcast looks eventually. And I will be getting to that. You know, keep in mind, you know, Dirk Green got his own shows, man. Go and follow him on those. His is some spicy stuff. You think we spicy on here? We PG compared to Dirk over there, man.
Hey, Addy, let me tell you, last Monday's show, man, it was so spicy. The topic was so big that we actually broke a live viewer record. You know, like we don't get Iron Lord podcast numbers, but we hit 561 live viewers, most we've ever had. They wanted to hear us TTS, bro. That's what they wanted to hear. They wanted to hear us, and it was a fun show, man. Crazy numbers, you know, for us. Crazy numbers, bro.
That's good. And you know, you guys have a good show over there. You know what it is for the most part, people know it's just fun, jokes and games.
It's just fun,
and,
man.
You know, and you know, I don't want to go over this too much, but I have noticed that, you know, people get this weird, like, this weird middle ground when it comes to content creators that are funny. You know, they kind of like, because you guys do kind of go on that console war stuff where you can go left or right pretty easy, but it always stays on the middle ground, and I respect it for it, because there's a lot of people out there, Dirt, and I'm sure you've noticed them, that you know, anything that comes up in any negative way, shape, or form, they always like, but Addict, we need to be positive. Like, I call them. They are the toxic positivity clan. Yeah. Because look, I will say that there's a lot of people out there, especially PlayStation fanboys, that love to to take a little issue and amplify it by 1,000. Right. But at least there's something that originated from that issue for them to amplify. Most of the time I see when these toxic positivity people, they don't hold accountable for anything. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, you know, this and that and this. I'm like, no, we're not talking about none of that. Like, stuff needs to change, and we're talking about it. And I feel like a lot of people, regardless if it's for sponsorships or, you know, relationships with certain people in the industry, they are willing to sideswipe the concepts and what they say to the left or right so they can maintain those relationships. I'm not going to tell you that I probably have been brought up multiple times. You know, my outputs on stuff like Halo. Here's the thing, though. I know I ain't never hosting anything. I know I'm never gonna get that big bag. So I'm gonna talk my talk, and it's just like, you know. But one thing I want to like voice your concern with that is like, most of these places don't care what you say as long as you say it in a semi-respective way. Because there's a difference between someone joking around about something and then someone personalizing someone and joking about them. And I feel like a lot of the time, you know, it's the latter. People they can't talk about Xbox without personalizing someone like Phil Spencer or Aaron Greenberg and just being disrespectful for no reason. You could easily get your point across and still have what's the word I'm looking for? You can easily get your point across and be respectful and still get that, you know, that criticism that you want to give. And people feel like it's only one or the other. Sure, there'll be some times where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to let that go. Because clearly, I have this rule, Dirt, and I don't know how you feel about it. People say, well, Addict, why don't you bring that up anymore? I have this rule where if I bring something up a couple times, I'm done with that conversation until there's been realistically enough time to handle it, to actually give some type of response to it. Like, for instance, people that talk about Xbox got no games for 2 years every podcast. You can't realistically have them fix that in a month, but you are talking about it every podcast that month.
Exactly.
And it's just like, you know, we all got to be better, man. You know, because sometimes I see that that dangling low fruit when it comes to the console war stuff. I'm like, and yeah, I got to be better on that. But like one thing we got to do is we can't always turn stuff positive because there's not always a positive outlay.
That's not reality, bro. You know, we're all different. We all have different styles of podcasts. We all can't be the same. Dirt Griggity and We Bleed Green, we can't be Iron Lord's podcast. We can't be RDX. We can't be. I can only be what I'm comfortable with, and we all got to be different, man. We all can't be the same. So
I agree, and
that's
why, you know, at least with the people that are on there saying the same stuff every week, at least with their toxic stuff, when they're like, Xbox got no games, let's just take a drill hammer to that over and over again. You know what I'm saying? Right. At least there's some form of truth there that is the reason they're doing that. If Xbox started launching Starfield and it was like a 9 out of 10 and Redfall's a 9 out of 10, these people would shut up eventually. You just have to, you have to force them to submission at that point. But I do feel like, you know, it's like I said, these other people, it's like, man, we can't act like there's rainbows all the time.
Yeah, there's not, bro.
That's equivalent to like seeing something like, you know, Halo Infinite and saying, well, they had to work in the pandemic. It's okay to acknowledge the troubles that they had, but you could still acknowledge the issues the game is currently having without exclusively being one or the other. And I think that's the biggest issue. Like, there's a middle ground where you got the toxic positivity people over here that don't want to say anything outlandish, and then you got the hugely toxic people over here, and no one wants to entertain the middle. And I think everyone needs to be better at entertaining that middle. And this isn't even really on your podcast, because I don't consider you a toxic podcast.
We just have fun. Yeah, I mean, like some people might, but we just have fun, man.
No, there's a difference between toxic podcasts and you know. You ride on the console war wave, but in a joking way. Like rarely do I see you like really like actively attack anyone for anything. And when you do attack someone, it's like huge fanboys that we have relationships with that they will actually watch it and be like, yeah, I was bugging. I was bugging. We got a member chat from Bunty. He's been a member for 13 months. Enough respect to Dirt and ILP Addict. 2 of my favorite podcasts. Hit them up where it hurts today. The truth. And then we got a $2 super chat from Edwin Garcia. Mystic Ryan is passively biased towards PlayStation. And that's fine. See, that's different, but the people actually working at these companies. Like, they got to do that. Like, they got to, they can't really speak on negatives on their company because PR would message them so fast. Like, no, don't be talking like that. But that's my little rant for the day. You got anything you want to address, Dirt?
I agree, man. Like there's a middle ground. Sometimes people want to be either super negative or super positive. Sometimes there's a middle ground, and like you was referring to earlier, there are so many different style of podcasts. I'm fully aware that everybody might not like my style, but there are people that do like my style. So you can't please everybody. I told this story like on my show. When I used to coach middle school basketball, I coached for 8 years. Even though I was in my 30s at the time, I realized you can't please everybody. There were games where we would blow a team out by 30 points, and there were games where we would lose to a team by 30 points. No matter what happened, when we would win, there would be parents say, my child didn't play enough, Dirt. What are you doing? You're a terrible coach. If we would lose, you're just a terrible coach. Why are we losing like this? And I notice you can't please everybody. There's some people you can never please. So going into this YouTube thing, I realized that early on, there's going to be some Xbox guys that don't like my console war content. There's guys that told me, Dirt, your channel is going to console. I don't like it anymore. It's okay, man. Thanks for watching. Peace out. Then there's guys that love my content. There's PlayStation guys that hate it. There's PlayStation guys that used to like it, don't like it anymore. So you're never going to please everybody. So might as well go with what you're comfortable with.
And it's like to mention, like, I like the console war stuff. I do feel like, there are people that take it too far.
Absolutely.
But for the most part, the people in my inner circles, it's just a joking thing. It's, when I make fun of like a certain aspect of PlayStation. It's not because I hate PlayStation. I got that overweight thing up there. I still play it. I love playing it. It's just got to give me something to play it on right now because, Horizon wasn't hitting like that. But it's just like, Xbox comes around. Like, I remember I had a scenario where I was talking about Starfield. And I said, yo, I wanted to see more on Starfield last year. And I will never forget how much nonsense that I got because I just wanted to see more on Starfield. And they're like, oh, Addict, they're going to show you next year, and I'm like, look, Starfield was announced years ago by Bethesda. So regardless how you feel about it, just because I want to see more Starfield shouldn't mean that I shouldn't see more Starfield. And then people, I'm tired of, like, there's a lot of people that feel like there can't be both answers are right. Just because you feel like Starfield isn't, like, last year shouldn't have been there because, they still need more information on it, doesn't mean that I can't see more on that. For instance, when they were talking about the 1,000 planet stuff, I said, okay, maybe they're being too ambitious on this. And then people say, well, Addict, you don't know enough information. I said, why can't we both be right? You know what I'm saying? Why can't I'm a little nervous because they're showing all this span, and I'm worried about, is there actually going to be relevant content with this span? And you could be right because we don't have enough information and we need to see more to really acknowledge if it's going to be good or bad for the game. And I feel like too many people are like, if I don't agree with you, you're wrong, I'm right, and vice versa. And people say, where's BitCloud? BitCloud will be here. BitCloud's late, like normal. This is like the second week in a row he's took his sweet time coming on the show. But, we got you. The Xbox people are always on time. I'm just pointing that out. All right, so let's go ahead and get on with this Roundhouse new title, man. So there's not a lot of information on this. So I didn't want to take it that way on what we speculate this game would be. You know what I want to hear from you, Dirt? What do you want them to be working on? What kind of genre? What type of, what kind of, viewership? What type of game do you want them making for Xbox?
Well, Roundhouse, what has they made? Like, what's their previous games? Do you know?
I think they're a brand new studio.
A brand new studio? Oh, okay. Well, to be honest with you, the genre doesn't matter too much. I don't want a real-time strategy game. I'm not a fan. Me personally, I'm not a fan of that genre. I would like to see something third person because Xbox has a lot of first person games. I would like to see a third person action game. It doesn't have to be a real heavy narrative. But I just want to see something like a banging new IP. I would love if they did a Recore remake, a better version of Recore 2, or something like that. Because I actually like that game. I thought the IP had tons of potential. So yeah, I would like to see something a little different. Not a first-person shooter, not a RTS. Just something, it could be a platformer. In my opinion, it can be whatever but those two genres like Xbox has, and they don't need another first-person shooter IP, in my opinion. So I would like to see something a little different, something new.
I actually would like to see a platformer. I don't know why. I'd like to see.
I would be fine with a platformer, bro. I would be absolutely fine with it.
I actually feel like Returnal, for all the snap that people say on Returnal, I feel like Recore would have been a very good game if it was redone, given a proper budget with proper people making it. People like to attack the stuff that Recore did wrong, but people don't like giving that game the stuff it did right. And I feel like, look, Recore might have had a kind of a generic fighting system, a color system that didn't make sense to a lot of point. Not a lot of options in terms of creatures. Wasn't a lot of bosses either. It's kind of like a plain desert game with not a lot of content in it. But one thing it did do is it did have really good platforming parts. And I feel like that's what the game should have been built around, is platforming.
Absolutely. Great platforming. I actually finished that game. I'm the only person I know that finished that game.
I did.
Oh, see. The second person I ever met that finished Recore. I enjoyed that game. I thought it had there's a ton of potential for a future Xbox IP. I know they still own the IP, but I don't know if they're going to do anything with it. But yeah, I totally love Recore.
I just feel like when it comes to Recore, they needed to focus a little bit more on combat, make it a little bit more fluid. I like the tug of war thing they did in that game. They could have did like a skill tree where maybe instead of like just yanking it, she uses her thing and makes it to like a whip and smacks it around her and hits everything around you.
Yeah.
Like there was just so much they could have done if they would have had a good class system in that game. You know, maybe you could have switched out the animals for multiple different animals that wasn't just those 3. Not to mention they put the unique person in there after the game was already dead at that point.
So it was like a year later, wasn't it?
It was about a year later.
Yeah.
I just felt like that game had potential, and another prime example of Microsoft not utilizing that potential. I agree. I don't think they're going to do anything with that. That and Rise Son of Rome.
Yeah, right. You
know, that could have easily been their God of War.
Oh, man. 2 new IPs. Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. See, the thing with ReCore, if you really go back and look at it, it almost seemed like the game wasn't ready to release because that following year, like we mentioned, the definitive edition, it had, see, on the original ReCore in 2016, there was a robot on the cover of the game that just flat out wasn't in the game. It was in the game, like you ride on. The one you ride over the sand or whatever, the quicksand.
It came in like that big expansion. They put that game, that robot in the game.
Like a year later, the definitive edition, which was the finished game. So it just seemed like at that time, Xbox just needed content. So they just put games out. Even though this was just a AA game, they just put it out when it wasn't fully ready. You know, that was the times. I'm like, that's how it was back then, unfortunately. So yeah, ReCore was one of those games I wish they would bring it back. Maybe Roundhouse. I wish Roundhouse would do a ReCore, a reimagining of ReCore or something. But that's just me.
ReCore needed kind of like a Prince of Persia platforming style that you take into account for all her animals, and you take into account for the movement that she had. And I felt like they never really did that. It was always one or the other. The platforming was good, don't get me wrong, and you did do that some in the game, but I felt like it should have been a lot more.
Yeah, I agree.
What's funny is if you look at ReCore's final dungeon in that game, that's some of the hardest platforming I've ever done in gaming.
It was
ridiculous.
Yeah. It was crazy.
And then when you look at Rise Son of Rome, it's just like you look at that game and you're just like, that game's a very beautiful game. And it had so much potential. So much potential that I actually felt like, you give it a good story. You really build up the lore of the game. You could have even went it from, it was that Rise Son of Rome thing, and you could have put gods in it. It could have literally been in its own God of War. And once again, Microsoft, that was at a time where they wasn't really valuing what other people made for them. They wanted what they were making for themselves. They wanted other people to make stuff, and it's just
and they bit them in the butt.
It's disappointing. That's one of the biggest issues they've had, for a long time, is they will contract second-party people to make a game, and then after that contract is over, they're like, oh, okay. And I heard that Rise Son of Rome 2 was actually in development, and then they were fighting over who owned the IP.
I heard that also, that Microsoft or Xbox and Crytek, I heard that Xbox wanted to buy the IP and Crytek didn't want them to buy the IP. So I don't know, maybe some friction happened there. I'm not sure if they're on good terms now. Maybe they are, but at one point maybe they weren't on good terms. So,
and crazy, what happened from the outcry of them not letting Microsoft buy that IP? Nothing. They have an IP they ain't done nothing with. They don't make like merchandising tools or anything like that, because there ain't no merchandise for that game really. Like it's just there's a couple IPs that Microsoft owns I would really like to have seen more of. Rise is one of them. ReCore is one of them. I would have really liked to see a Banjo. I think they could really do something with Banjo. I would like to see some form of a party game with all of their IPs being like icons where you can like play the game as Banjo or Doom Guy. Like they got so many stuff. They don't even have to do like a Super Smash Bros. Like a Mario Party type of game. Right. I feel like they would actually do really well in that area, but I don't know. Maybe right now Microsoft's in. We got to make sure we get these games that Bethesda was making at that time, and then we got to make sure that Bethesda, the games that come out after that, are good too.
Absolutely.
Because clearly they had maybe a next game that was in mind, And I'm sitting here looking at like a scenario, like Multiverse is talking about in the chat. Someone brought up the Warner Bros. Now has Multiverse. Exactly. Microsoft, that could have been them. That could have been their game. And
Easily now.
it just, I do feel like sometimes these multi-billion-dollar corporations get lost touch, and if they don't see making money immediately, they don't greenlight it. And I'm not saying that people don't need to make money. Money makes the world go round. I'm saying sometimes you need to build a foundation of something before you get the real money later.
Right.
Right. And you know, it is what it is with that. Is there any games that you would like Microsoft to revive that they own?
Well, I just said one with Recore. Excuse me. Well, they don't own the Rise IP, but I wish they did, because I would love that. Man, like you said, there's so much IP they own now, and just imagine after Activision Blizzard, goodness. After Activision Blizzard, I would like a true crime remake, you know, because I love that both of those games back in the day. I'm not sure, you know, if they would do that, because GTA, those style of games, isn't as popular as it was doing
You know what you do with True Crime?
What's that?
You make that into a third-person like action game that's kind of like on the same verses like Uncharted and stuff, where it's it doesn't have like a huge open world that you go through.
Oh, okay.
It's really linear, but I feel like, you know, imagine you in Japan fighting through Japan, or like, you know, I'd like to see more games that go off the villain side of, like, you know, you playing as a villain from a young age and you finally understanding why they are by the time they get the older age. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I'm down for that, man. But they have so many IP. Even if they, you know, it's funny if you think about Pitfall. Activision owns Pitfall, right? Which was literally the first Tomb Raider or Uncharted game. You know, it was just like, eventually maybe they could do something with that IP. You know, you never know. A good old Pitfall game. So, yeah, there's tons of IP, man. Like I just said, Banjo would be cool. Recore. Nah, man, I can't even think of it off the top of my head, bro. There's so many IP they own now.
And that's sad. That's why I'm okay with them buying like these giant companies, because I'm hoping, you know, as long as they don't keep everyone on Call of Duty, and I think they are going to keep a lot more of these studios on Call of Duty than people think.
I think they are too.
Yeah,
I agree with you. Yeah.
I think they're going to free maybe one or two of them up, but I think the vast majority of them are still going to work on Call of Duty.
I agree. Yeah,
because I think a lot of these people want to work on Call of Duty, and I don't think people realize that Call of Duty is a very job security type of game. As long as you don't mess up and do everything you're supposed to, you're never going to realistically run out of work. Call of Duty is infinite, pretty much. Like they never run out of stuff to do. Like, because there's always a war that went on in the past that you can reimagine. There's always some future war that you could create. Like, you literally could do anything with that brand, and I think that's
absolutely, yeah.
You know, a lot of people feel, you know, secure with that type of gameplay.
Yeah.
I actually, you know, not to get off it a little bit, 'cause I know we're going to talk about, you know, Activision slightly in the final topic, but I would actually, what do you want them to do with the pre-existing stuff that they own with Call of Duty? Not Call of Duty necessarily, because I don't think they're going to do a whole lot with that. I think that's going to stay around the same. But as far as their other stuff that Activision owns, what would you prefer them to do with any of that?
I would like, well, like, first off, let me say, I agree with you. I think they're going to keep a lot of those teams on Call of Duty, what they've been doing for a while. But I think the occasional team like Bob's, Toys for Bob, I think that's a studio that might go off and do something, maybe another platform or maybe another Crash. Because I'm telling you, Crash Bandicoot 4 was an underrated gem of a game. That game was awesome, and not a lot of people cared, unfortunately. So Toys for Bob, I would love to see them do another platform. I read they're doing something. I believe that studio specifically is doing something. But yeah, you say COD is huge. I would like for them to, I don't know. Would you like for them to bring back Guitar Hero somehow?
No, that could stay so far.
That could stay dead.
well, I'm not gonna say okay. You know, if they bring
what about
it back,
Tony Hawk or
it is what it
like
is.
that?
If they bring it back, it is what it is. But I do feel like I don't want to see a Guitar Hero game. Like me personally, if they brought it back and people actually really vibe with it, whatever. What I would like is them to make a Spiral and Crash game together.
Yeah.
It would be cool if, like, you know, they have a cohesive story between them both. I think it would be cool if you had a Crash Bandicoot game and Banjo-Kazooie somehow together. Because they both got, like, the companion with them.
Yeah.
I think it would be interesting. But, you know, obviously those are really outstretched. I think if Microsoft was smart when they secured this PlayStation, this COD deal, and secured this Activision deal. I don't know why I always want to call COD Activision COD. When they secured the Activision deal, they would keep Crash and rebrand it as like a huge part of like the icon for Xbox. Like wherever that Xbox brand is, you want to put him in there somewhere. Because I don't think people, especially younger audiences, they don't realize the importance in the past of Crash Bandicoot.
Right.
Like,
they don't know.
A huge, important game.
Absolutely.
And I think a Crash Bandicoot game, you know, even if it's something small, like, you know, they need that as a mascot. I think Crash would be a fantastic mascot. Spyro was important back then, but not nearly as important as Crash. Crash was
way bigger.
Crash was probably the grandfather of platforming that like kind of like jump started just like I think Halo is one of the grandfathers for first person shooters. Now, is it the most important shooter? Maybe for console gaming it was, because I do think Halo made console gaming a lot more adept, but I don't think it was that important in the grand scheme of things. I actually think Call of Duty was more important to first person shooters than Halo, because I think, you know,
what about Doom? You know, Doom? No.
Doom, here's the thing. Doom is good, but I think Call of Duty made it mainstream. And
that's true.
I think at the end of the day, it's not 99 anymore, Addict. I'm not saying, look, someone talking about my Crash. Look, I'm not saying that they need to do it. I'm saying that Crash Bandicoot is such a recognizable thing. Well, for a lot of people, they might not know what that dude's name is, but there's a lot of casual people, you show them Crash Bandicoot, and they're going to recognize it. Maybe not the name, but they're going to recognize the actual person. 40-year-old kids, Eric the Beard, you serious? Why?
Hey, remember Crash? Crash was the one guy that ran up on Mario. Remember that commercial where Crash was always at like Nintendo headquarters, and he had the megaphone. It was calling out Mario. Do you remember that commercial? I know you're a little bit younger than me, but
you know what would be crazy? Someone just brought up a good point. A Crash verse. Imagine if you felt like, remember how Donkey Kong 64 had where you could switch between characters and every area had like a certain unique aspect that a platformer that only a certain character do? Imagine if the next like 5 years Toys for Tots started building a Crash verse with Spyro in it, Banjo-Kazooie, Crash Bandicoot, Conquer. And they put all these people in this one universe, and then in 5 years after they've made a few of these games, because keep in mind, these games don't cost that much to make. And keep in mind, at the end of all this, you make a Donkey Kong 64 style game with all of them in it. I think it would be lit. Now, sure, are these games going to sell well? Probably not. But here's the thing. Microsoft can't come out openly over and over again and say, we like Game Pass because it gives us more opportunities to take risks, but then don't do any risks.
Right.
It makes no sense. So that's pretty much all we got for that one, man. Like I said, I think that they have a lot of opportunity. Hopefully we'll see something from this studio that's pretty relatively good. I'm very curious, man. So next topic, we got, superheroes are everywhere, man. They're literally everywhere. I'm sure you've seen them too. Apparently another studio from EA's supposedly working on a Black Panther game. So I started thinking, am I bugging for thinking that everyone's getting superhero games but Microsoft? Like,
no, I don't think you're bugging. I just think, me personally, I think Phil Spencer is in a point where they want to own those huge properties because in the past they've got bitten in the butt by putting out a game and not able to do a sequel because they didn't own those properties. If they bought a WB or something, or I don't know if they can even get the license to the superheroes, but this is just my opinion, of course. I just think Phil wants to own these huge games. They're going to either be third party or he wants to own them. Because if you don't own it, it can be a Sunset Overdrive. Even though Sunset Overdrive didn't kill it, it was out, it was released, and they left to go do something else. Spider-Man. They're like Rise Summer Wrong. We just talked about it. I just believe Phil wants to own the IP, own the property. I don't think he wants to, okay, we'll do one game. Yeah. Now, people might not agree with it, but that's my opinion about it. I just think he just doesn't want to, own it and then they leave and do something else, or the studio gets bought out. There's so many instances of, like, if you think about Crackdown 3, they had that team that was doing the cloud tech and they got acquired by, was it Epic or Facebook, somebody. Yeah. So then that pretty much they had to do it themselves, and you saw how it turned out. They got bit in the butt way too many times of working on the game or worked on the game and the sequel couldn't be done because the team that developed left. I just don't think you want to do that. That's just my opinion. Not saying it's right, but that's what I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think for the most part, I think he wants to work in-house for everything. Mm-hmm. I think at any point he wants to pick up the phone, and if a head of a studio doesn't want the studio working on, he said, okay, then I can replace you. I still get what I want. It's just you're not doing it anymore. It used to be if you talk to a studio like that and you had no leverage over them, they would just go do what they want. And I'm not saying that, he's idling for like power or anything like that, like he's power hungry. I think Phil's tired of losing IPs and losing these potential, huge IPs that they could have nurtured because the studio don't want to do them. So now it's like, people say, well, stop making your studio work on one game. I don't think Phil's really focusing on anything like that. Look, I don't mind a studio working on one or two games and that's all. Because Microsoft owns so many now, because remote access and remote games, remote work has become so accessible that if you could just pick up the phone, call your HR and say, yo, after this game, I'm a little burnt out on Halo. Can I transfer and work on maybe Fable and finish and help them finish that? And if there's a position opening, they can make that happen. Like, I think Microsoft is like one of the only studios that offer you this kind of variety in game play. Like a developer, as long as there's access to remote work, you can literally work on any genre almost in the industry.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Because you're working remotely. Like, you don't have to relocate to another city, another state. No, you're working at the comfort of your own home. You're absolutely right about that, man.
Yeah. And I also think that being said, I do agree that even though he doesn't want to do it, I still think he needs to. You got Sony potentially making their own Marvel universe in their games, because we don't know if Spider-Man and Wolverine are going to be connected in the gaming universe, but I can almost guarantee you they are. Like, I can almost guarantee you they are. And then I don't know anything about comic books, but whatever group that those two belong to, because I don't know enough about, their universes to know, they can eventually spawn like their own Avengers moment in the future, where they get a couple characters together and then they make them together and they form a group game. And it's just like, that game's going to so well. Yeah, that game is going to move consoles. And to me, it's like the Fallout 5 moment. People disagree with me on that. I'm not saying that Fallout need Fallout 5. I'm saying that is such a big movement, such a big game. Don't wait till after Elder Scrolls 6 to decide that you want a Fallout 5, because by then, might be too late. And it's just like, look, we got to do better with vocalizing. I get tired when I say something like that and people say, oh, who are you to demand us or demand people to make games? I'm not demanding anything. I'm just pointing something out. There's a lot of people that like fantasy stuff. That's where Elder Scrolls comes in. And there's a lot of people that like modern day stuff that could happen. Look, Fallout got mutants and stuff in it. Chances are that's not hugely realistic, but we don't know what a nuclear war gonna bring either. So, like, look, like I do think, like I said, I will die on this hill. Addict is on this hill, and he got a bazooka. Come mess with me, because this hill is lit. You know, I got traps on this hill. Think about a movie where people are going up something and there's nothing but traps, and the whole point is to get to the top alive. That's my hill. My hill's trapped. All right, so I'm willing to stay on this hill as long as it takes for you to get me off of it. They need to make Fallout 5 at the same time that they make Elder Scrolls 6. I don't care if Bethesda doesn't make it. You know, if you want to make it a co-op, I personally think, I've said it on the show, it needs to be a co-op experience. 2 studios need to be working on that game. My preferred world would be Bethesda and Obsidian. You could do the same thing with these type of games. Just because you don't need a superhero game, and at the end of the day, the grand scheme of things, they probably don't need one, doesn't mean they shouldn't give you one.
All right. Yeah, I mean, if you look at what Sony is doing, yeah, well, if that's the case, maybe they should do one. But at the same time, I just think Phil wants to own it, man. I don't think he wants to license stuff out. You know, when it comes to Game Pass, he wants to make sure Game Pass is their IP, is their game, and they can keep it in Game Pass as long as they want. They don't have to, you know, worry about it leaving Game Pass or the contract ended. The game has to go. No. I just think Phil wants to focus on Xbox IP because, like you mentioned earlier, man, those deals that Don Matrick made in the Xbox 360 generation, they came back to kick Xbox in the butt. They don't want to do that. They've learned from that. They had great games. You know, BioShock was exclusive for a year. Like the first Mass Effect was actually exclusive. But what happened? They didn't buy.
I'm sorry. So it's Addict has the high ground when I was talking about my mountain analogy. People are ridiculous.
It's funny. Like I said, the first Mass Effect was an exclusive. But what happened? They didn't own them. BioWare got picked up by EA. So every Mass Effect after that was a multiplat. So they learned over the years, you can't, you know, just do all of these second-party deals. And eventually what happened was the Xbox One generation, even though the first 3 years was quality as far as software, when Insomniac left to do something, they didn't make a deal with Crytek. All of those games, they had the timed exclusivity of Tomb Raider. None of those games were sequels. Their next game was never on the Xbox exclusively because these deals they made in the past came back to bite them in the butt. And Phil Spencer mentioned this, that he doesn't, he wanted to make sure things are done in-house. Like you said, whether we like that or not, it is what it is, bro.
Yeah, we can't make stuff happen. But what I will say is, like I said, I understand why Phil does what he does when it comes to this, but I do think that the problem wasn't the fact that they didn't own stuff. The problem was that they solely relied on them owning it.
Facts.
That's
true.
If you got 1 or 2 games being made that's not in-house, then make it relevant. Make it games that matter. For instance, a superhero game. There's so many opportunities out there. You got this Blade game, Blade movie that's coming out. Like I think it's the end of next year. Start working on a Blade game. So and not to mention, you can make. We need a third-person, action adventure game. You can hit 2 birds with 1 stone. Have the Coalition make a Punisher game, gory. Because that's what the kind of character he is. It makes sense for them to make it, and that's the only thing. It's just like, dude, I get it. People think that, I just don't like the mindset that just because they don't want it in the house, the overall aspect that that's how it should be. And it's just like, I honestly feel that it could happen. Everyone can get what they want. And I think it could easily be that way. Everyone can get what they want. We get the same aspect. I think that, right now we're not saying much because there's not a lot going on. But Dirt, tell me what happens when Sony does in like maybe 5 to 10 years. That's a long time, but in gaming wise, that's not. Imagine in 5 to 10 years, you start seeing this world that Sony's been trying to build, this cinematics world where you got Wolverine in it. Then you're gonna have Spider-Man. It's rumored that they have another game that they're working on. Imagine a scenario where all of these games come in, share a universe, and then they start hitting their Avengers in the movies moments. It's just like, if we thought Spider-Man was a struggle and Wolverine's going to be a struggle, imagine when you start seeing their Avengers pop up. Like that, but at that time, if you don't make stuff now, and that's like theorizing that they're doing this. I think it's a pretty good, safe bet to say that.
It's pretty obvious. They plant seeds.
So if you don't make steps now to at least have those type of games, not necessarily, maybe you can't get your own Marvel universe because Sony probably have some kind of back deal with Marvel saying, look, we only making yo games. And if it's over on our platform, it's exclusive. Because if you noticed, ever since that happened, you don't really see anything exclusive to anywhere else besides before they started making those Spider-Man deals and those Wolverine deals. Like it's like I bet you $20. I'm never gonna be able to prove it because they never come out. I bet you they have first refusal clauses that says, "Oh, Gotham Knights, that don't look like our style. They can do that. Oh, we don't need that." Like, because it's just like, to me, you don't see Marvel anymore. You don't even see the generic stuff. You know what I'm saying? You don't see the 3 or 4 bad Spider-Mans anymore. Like, it's just like,
oh, hold on now. We just had 2 Marvel games dropping in the last 2 years,
and they were bad.
They were duds. They were solid games.
No,
but no. Hold on.
No.
They were solid games.
Hold on.
You're thinking about the Avengers. I'm thinking about Guardians of the Galaxy. They were solid games.
Okay.
But these games were in development for years.
I say no.
These games were in development for years. Like years and years. Probably 3 to 5 years. Easy.
Yeah, of course.
Gotham,
but they still,
Gotham Knights
they were still AAA games.
Gotham Knights is a DC property, so you can't really count that.
That's why I'm surprised Microsoft hasn't done anything with that. Gotten into the DC route.
And I think that's just my biggest thing. It's like, if you can't be, look, I'm not saying, I've always been, COG is huge on the hashtag just once. I'm not really there. I'm like, you technically get that with Hellblade. You get that with Gears of War. Compulsion's making one. They have just 3. But COG, he feels like the PlayStation audience, that they want brand new experiences. I ain't about that. I'm like, look, they played 5 Uncharted's, like 2 Last of Us's. Like, clearly they don't care to play the same experience over and over again. So that's just my thing. And it's just like, if you don't start the planning processes now, and maybe you go up to DC and like, yo, we gonna buy WB. And we gonna buy WB, or at least Rocksteady. What kind of deal can we make to make our own cinematic universe? Because we're gonna do in games what you guys have a hard time doing in the movies. We're gonna make good long-term ideals for comic books when it comes to the DC platform. And it's just like, that's where I'm at. It's like, they need to start making arrangements now, because once those Avenger type games start coming out in 5 to 10 years, at that point, it's a wrap. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah. Like, I'm surprised we won't have a Batman game, even rumored, like an actual true Batman game after the success of The Batman.
Yeah.
So I don't consider Gotham Knights a Batman game. I consider that something else.
No.
That ain't it. I ain't claiming that.
Yeah, I'm really curious how these future superhero games are going to be, because as the Avengers, which wasn't a bad game, I just think it being games as a service totally just ruined that game for me.
That and yeah, they just
Yeah, I think it was a decent
substance.
game. It had decent graphics, a decent gameplay. It was just it was some
Wasn't it?
things about it I like, but like with the Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy, those games, AAA games, excuse me, was a dud. We're hearing how people's not really feeling Gotham Knights. We're hearing Suicide Squad. We don't know anything about Suicide Squad. So I'm kind of like, being the superhero game isn't a guaranteed hit. I think when it comes to Insomniac and Spider-Man, they're in the league of their own right now.
Part of me agrees with you, but the other part of me is like, I feel like Rocksteady makes a Flash game or makes a Superman game. As Superman will probably be a little bit harder because Superman can fly. I feel like they're gonna hit that, because they got that formula down, and in a lot of ways, Spider-Man copied some of Batman's formula. So it's just like, to me, it's like, look, you can't get number one, which I'm here to tell you, Microsoft tried to buy Insomniac, but that wasn't going through, and that's probably what led to Sony buying Insomniac, because they're like, oh man, we should get them before Microsoft does, because people don't realize, like, look, just because you make initial statements doesn't mean that they won't read down and double down in like 6 months to a year trying to get them again. Like, okay, I sent you a letter of intent. I want to buy you for $200 million. They say no. People act like Microsoft can't send it with double the money in 6 months from now.
Double it. Yeah.
So that's why Sony's like, let's just buy them now, because we might not have the opportunity in 6 months from now. So it's just like, what do you think, BitCloud? Because we've got a lot from me and Derek. Like, as far as Xbox and superhero, do you think that's something that they need, or you think is it a necessity to you, or is it an obligation that you feel like they owe to their fans?
So I've said this multiple times. They need a superhero. The more you let Sony just literally become the genre by itself as the only box where you can get these crazy AAA characters, like superhero characters on their system, you put yourself in a bubble at this point. Rocksteady's not making, Batman anymore. They're done. They moved on. They're doing Suicide Squad. You would think at a time like this, Microsoft would have done something and was like, hey guys, listen, we want Batman. We need to get Batman to compete against Spider-Man. We need to get Superman to compete against this. You know what I mean? Hell, without Microsoft, I would have done this right when the Justice League was being brought back for the Snyderverse. I would have had something being worked on. But no, we don't have that. And the thing about Sony, even with Spider-Man, this is why I think the Avengers is happening, because they threw in every snippet that they possibly could that, yes, there are more characters in their arsenal that they can definitely bring to the real world. We saw the Wakandan embassy. We saw Avengers Tower. We saw Matt Murdock's business card, aka Daredevil. We saw all this stuff in the game. They have so many characters they can choose from that I'm not surprised by whatsoever. Wolverine's going to be the next tier and pushing that forward. And once Wolverine's done and we get to the X-Men, who's to say we don't see a Black Panther, a true Black Panther game, depending on what Monolith does, right? Who says we won't get a Black Panther or a Daredevil? Possibilities are there.
I hear you. We have $2 from Tech Money. Sony and Marvel are at odds. That's why you see EA. That is another like little thing about like EA still. EA got it easy. Like, they get to make Star Wars games. They get to make Marvel games. Like, it's like EA. I'm wondering if when like there was more to that contract where they had something to leverage against Disney to where they can still retain at least the rights to make those type of games. Because it's kind of crazy they can make both.
Yeah.
It is kind of crazy. They can make Star Wars and Marvel games. Considering who made Marvel Avengers? That was
Crystal
Square
Dynamics.
Enix.
That was Square Enix.
Considering how bad that game did, that it's kind of crazy when you look at them. Like, Battlefront did bad. I don't know. Maybe Battlefront 2 saved itself at the end, but it's like Battlefront 2 came out really bad. Then you got something like Marvel Avengers. You got occasional gems like Guardians of the Galaxy, but for the most part, Marvel games haven't been the greatest at all. Like, you got a handful.
It comes down to the style, man. That's what it comes down to.
I feel you on that. And that's why I feel like, people sit there and they say stuff like, Addicts, I wanted them to buy. I'm going to be real with you. To this day, I don't want them to buy Activision. I feel like Activision it's a money play. It's not a build your brand play.
This is just to push Game Pass.
Well, it's not even just that. Like, it can push Game Pass. I'm not saying
it will
that.
Push Game Pass.
I'm saying that.
Explain that.
Building their weaknesses, it does 0 to none.
I know, yeah.
I feel like a WB or a Sega made more sense to build weaknesses. Especially WB. Like, I might be 100% to buy something like Sega, because I feel like they're really lacking in the eastern part of the world. But WB, you get a NetherRealm to make Killer Instinct. Most likely you'll be able to retain that Mortal Kombat license and brand, so you can lease that out to make movies, good movies. Don't give them to whoever made that last movie. Yeah. And then that was HBO, Warner Brothers, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I heard that's getting
they're doing a sequel. Yeah, they're doing a sequel. Yeah.
Let me ask you this though. Do y'all think? Because I brought this up before with Sony, with you guys, and I said, Sony relied on Call of Duty as a crutch for their multiplayer solution. Do you guys think Microsoft's going into that direction now, because this is going to be like their main poster boy for Game Pass? Do you think that's going to be looked at as a crutch? You think so?
Okay, so explain the question again. Do you think Microsoft's is going to use them as a crutch?
Yeah, Call of Duty as a crutch.
I don't think they're going to use them as a crutch. I think they're going to use, like, a crutch is something that to me, a crutch is something that is a weakness, but you refuse to acknowledge because you have something to cover it. Like, if anything, I felt like maybe they used Halo for years as a crutch because they didn't feel like they needed to double down on the multiplayer aspect, because in terms of multiplayer factions, they had Gears, which is the third person. They have first person, which was Halo. Maybe them were crutches, so they didn't try anything more in those veins. But as far as Call of Duty, I think they know that Call of Duty is going to be on multiple platforms. So I don't think they really have an issue with like that issue with the brand, because it's still going to be everywhere and they're still going to make money. But I think they're planning on using Call of Duty as the end all be all. Instead of seeing a Call of Duty where it says, like, at the end of Game Pass and Call of Duty are going to be side by side everywhere you go.
Absolutely.
And I think they might have, look, they got a lot of stuff when they bought Activision. And I will say that Activision didn't 100% didn't help their brand, but there's very little things it did. Like, buying King was able to help them breach a little bit more into the mobile market. They also had, some of the most competitive, games as a service stuff that money can buy. Overwatch,
they got
Warzone,
platformers.
They got some platformers, so it did help them. But as far as the big weaknesses, that's what I'm talking about. So look, Activision is a good fit for Microsoft because there is not one shooter that's more recognizable than Call of Duty. And you could argue like Valorant these days, because I know that's getting really, really big. But it's just like, regardless how much money Valorant makes and how much, Valorant is the definition of a hardcore game. And I think that people need to realize that. When it comes to Call of Duty, anybody can pick up them sticks. Anybody. And I think that's their goal. Their goal is you go into a GameStop, and keep in mind, they invested in a GameStop last year. So
they did.
Yeah, so you could tell me all you want that there's not some like little behind the curtain language that's been going on at GameStop. There got to be something. They upgraded all their stuff, so I wouldn't be surprised you start walking in to GameStop stores and you start seeing PlayStation in the back, Xbox in the front. You start.
Oh, that's what's happening now. Yeah.
You start seeing
Xbox in the front now. Yeah.
You start seeing like, the people that work at GameStop, the employees start pushing Game Pass and pushing. What do you think I should? You know what? Are you a person of value? How many kids you have? Oh, we got a good service for you. We got this Xbox Series S back here in the back. Does your son like Call of Duty? Oh, he does? Well, all you have to do is buy this $299 console, and you can leave right here with every Call of Duty that's ever been made. Does your son like Call of Duty? He's about to get a shit ton of it. So,
yeah.
Like,
I can see them doing, especially when they get to the midnight releases. A lot of people, instead of walking out with collector's edition, they can walk out with a console in the game.
Yeah. Listen, man, Game Pass is probably 75% of the reason they bought Activision Blizzard. In my opinion, the remaining 25% is, Phil mentioned this before. He didn't want one of these huge companies like an Apple or Amazon coming to the gaming industry. If they would have came in and bought Activision Blizzard, because we heard that Activision Blizzard actually reached out to Facebook. Facebook turned them down. They reached out to Microsoft, and we're here now. So Phil said that he don't want these other companies to come into the gaming industry and disrupt things too much. We know Sony knows how to do gaming. We know Nintendo know how to do gaming, and here we have Xbox. So they're at the point they just want to make sure the big three holds on to the studios, because who would have known if Apple would have came into the game industry, bought Activision Blizzard, what would have happened then? Who knows, man? So I just think that Game Pass is the number one reason. Like you guys just said, Addict, you just explained, like painted a perfect picture of a child in Christmas of 2023. Yes. Do you love Call of Duty? Every single Call of Duty ever created is in Xbox Game Pass for low monthly price of $10 a month or whatever, So yeah, I do believe that's their main goal, because they're trying to continue to grow the service. It's doing well now, and they want to make sure it continues to do well. And and adding Call of Duty, that's huge, man. It's really huge.
You know what's crazy about it too? Game Pass, once that's aired out, and you get a lot more of these games coming out, it's an easy sell at GameStop. Walk up to someone, what kind of game you like? The moment they tell you, you can pick a game that Microsoft is making and run with it. Oh, you like racers? Oh, we got the Microsoft got this Halo 4 is a Halo Horizon game. Oh, you like sports games? Well, Microsoft makes deals with EA to get EA Play in there. Like, oh, you like comic book games? Well, we're gonna have to go over here to this PlayStation wall. But it's just that's the biggest thing when it comes to that, man. It's just like, look, I want what's best for the brand, and I feel like back to like the original topic with the superhero stuff, like if you don't start working on stuff soon, by the time it's relevant, it's not going to be relevant.
It's not going to be as impactful.
Yeah, and it's just like, imagine if they would have, when Spider-Man came out in 2018?
2018, yeah.
They went like, okay, they got that. We're probably not going to mess with Marvel because of that. You know what we're going to do, though? We're going to go over here, and we're going to talk to this person about making a Spawn game. And, they get a good developer on it. Then this year at E3, Spawn coming out next year.
Mm-hmm. See, that made more logical sense. I get behind that, especially after seeing that Mortal Kombat. Remember that? I know you remember the Mortal Kombat reveal trailer for Spawn?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
With Malboge in the background? Come on. When y'all saw that, y'all know damn well you wanted to see that in full-fledged game form.
Hey, can I say something, though? I don't see, in my opinion, Spawn, listen, man.
Oh, he's got something to say.
Spawn wouldn't move the needle, man. Spawn was more relevant in the 90s. Punisher is more recent. They had a Netflix show more recently. Exactly. Spawn wouldn't move the needle, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Spider-Man, any of the big Marvel games, IPs, well, not even that, because even that Avenger game was a dud. Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, I think there's only a handful of superheroes that will move the needle. Guardians of the Galaxy, great game. That game was fantastic. Nobody cared.
Yeah.
Nobody cared.
You got a point.
Spawn would not move the needle. Maybe to us, yes. But to a 23-year-old, who the hell is Spawn?
I feel like if the game was good enough, it would move the needle.
I'm gonna say, if you got the blood, you got the gore, you got the crazy set pieces with the clown, it definitely would move the needle.
What about a Superman game?
Superman,
Of
I've been
course,
asking for that for
Superman's- yeah.
Superman. I've been wondering as well. I know a lot of people say it's not possible, but it's like it is possible. You just don't have him face humans, have him face demons invading the world, or have it a couple of years before or after. I'm sorry, him getting his powers, and it's like Doomsday invading Earth or something.
Yeah.
There you
Well,
go.
yeah. Superman would be huge.
I mean, I
But-
feel you on that. Like, I do understand where you're coming from. Where like, so what, they got to spawn. If it doesn't, engage interest and really hype up the fan base to play the game, then at that point does it matter? And you're not wrong, but my point is, I don't know if they can really go to Marvel like that. I don't know if they can. Like, maybe that's one of the reasons that they haven't done it, because they might have had conversations with Marvel, and maybe out of just, here's the thing, people don't realize what that Spider-Man movie license values at Marvel. Like, when Marvel, you want
Sony has leverage, bro.
Yeah, you want to make a Marvel game? I don't know. Let me reach out to the higher ups and the person at Disney that he's like, nah. Well, they said that they don't want Spider-Man. They don't want nothing related to Spider-Man. I don't care. It's like, last thing I need to do is give a game to Microsoft for them to make exclusive, and then Sony hit me up at the next meeting whenever this next Spider-Man license ends and they have to renew it again. And was like, we feel a little way that you let Microsoft make. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, people don't realize how much money that movie licensing is worth.
It means a lot, man. It means a lot.
Like, literally, Sony could probably walk in to Disney and say, after this licensing is up, let's say they did make a Blade or a Black Panther game, and Sony could walk in there and say, we are going to take our Spider-Man and go home unless you pull those licenses after that game is up. And what realistic, and that might be the reason that they're not really doing it, because what realistic thing can Disney or Microsoft do at that point?
The most realistic thing they can do is go to DC.
I get what you're saying. That I get what you're saying.
DC.
I get what you're saying. That Batman, I feel like in DC, and maybe that Wonder Woman game, depending on how it does, is the only games that can move the needle. There's not much in DC that pops. Almost everything doesn't pop. Like,
yeah, I mean, like, you can't do a Blue Beetle game, and nobody would care about that.
Batman Beyond. You got Batman. You got Flash. You got Wonder Woman. You got what else? Aquaman's gotten a lot of publicity,
but it has to be Jason Momoa playing.
Yeah, and the chicks that play, they're gonna say, why isn't he putting his shirt on?
Yeah.
Hell, hey, see, you stole the words out of my mind right there. Red Hood. After playing Batman, what was it, Arkham Knight, the DLC Red Hood, I want that as a game.
Someone said, I don't think Sony can legally blackmail Marvel. It's not about blackmailing anything. It's about coming into a meeting and saying, look, we are a competitor to this entity, and you want this brand. How much do you want it? I mean, clearly you saw Disney was willing to let that go and walk out. And they did that strategic. People think they did that because they didn't want the Spider-Man brand. No, they did that to prove a point to Sony. And Sony called their bluff. And what the hell happened 2 months later? They came right the hell back to the meeting and said, okay, what's a good other middle ground?
Let's keep it a buck. Let's keep it a buck. In terms of movies and dollar sales for a superhero, who prints more money than Spider-Man?
Nothing.
Very much nobody. That is the ace card. That's always been the ace card character.
Yep.
Captain America came close, but he's not.
You know what?
Iron Man's come close, but he's not.
But ain't Spider-Man.
He's
not Spider-Man.
The sad part, maybe Static Shock.
Static Shock. Shit.
But here, I'm not saying, like, here's the thing. Most likely, I don't think they're going to get anything Marvel related until they prove me wrong and have a Marvel related exclusive. That's my stance on the matter.
Yep.
So they're going to have to take the little gems that's around them that are dirty as hell. They don't shine because no one knows who they are. So you're looking at stuff like Spawn. You're looking at stuff like Static Shock, because I feel like these heroes, they're not big enough to be that Spider-Man, but they have a little bit of what's what I'm looking for, notoriety to actually, okay, maybe we can make them work. Let me get this $5 super chat from King Metro Chan. I have nephews who are younger than 22 that love Spawn just because of Mortal Kombat 11 and wish he had a standalone game. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, they play more Kombat.
But we have established, and I think the numbers really point that out, that the fighting in general is a niche market, and just because you're willing to play a fighter, you know, it would have to be a really good Spawn game, and that's the thing. Like, if Microsoft ever does do a Spawn game, well, any type of superhero game, it's got to be good. Because if Microsoft does a superhero game and it's bad, they might as well just shut that whole superhero thing down. It's never happening.
Hey, but you said something about Sony. You see, Addict, you said that Sony, they're really using their leverage by owning the movie rights. Because think about this. When that Avenger game come out, they negotiated a deal to make Spider-Man exclusive DLC, because I'm assuming Sony thought that game was going to be a monster. Most people thought that Avenger game was going to be huge. Sony did too.
Anything with Avengers in it was selling, like, was guaranteed to sell. That's what they saw.
Yeah, that's what they saw. And then you hear about this Midnight, is it Marvel's Midnight Sun? That Spider-Man is available on all platforms, because I'm assuming Sony that, yeah, you know what? You could put Spider-Man on the Xbox in that game. Who cares?
Well, see, it's not that I don't think Sony can stop them from doing game iterations of Spider-Man, but unless it's something that is going to hurt Sony's bottom line, I don't think they're going to actually do anything. Like, when they thought the Marvel Avengers game was going to do well, they used that Spider-Man to leverage, like, what can you do for PlayStation? Because, like, people can act like, look, stuff like that happens all the time in the corporate world. The thing is you don't hear about it. Like, people are always in leveraging behind closed doors what they're going to do if you act out of turn. Like, but it's never made publicly, because most of the time, those threats that's done behind closed doors is enough to keep both parties in check.
That's true.
Yeah.
And people said, I thought Microsoft was rumored to have multiple Disney IPs. Yeah, probably maybe a Star Wars game. Maybe.
Yeah, that's probably more likely.
Maybe
Star Wars.
Indiana Jones is one of them. But like, we're talking about the biggest revenue that movies has seen in decades.
Yep.
And it's growing every year. And if you're on this train, my thing is, if Microsoft can't get on this train, then Microsoft can't get on this train.
Yep.
But if Microsoft is refusing to pay the toll to get on the train, that is the issue then I have. Well, it's like, look, if you physically can't get on the train because you're Microsoft and you've been outlawed to walk on to get on the train, okay, there ain't nothing you could do. But if you can get on it, but you don't want to spend the money it takes to get on the train, then I feel like right then you're not seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah. Especially with, it's crazy because this is the first movie wasn't like a crazy box office stealer, right? But Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness is another one that's getting into that billion, sales range. I mean, it's only going to get more expansive and more bigger as we go. Guardians, you have Spawn, you have Blade coming out, you have Moon Knight, She-Hulk. Sony's already like in the best position you think about it right now to do whatever the hell they want. They really are.
It's only so many games they can make, though, man. It's taking 3 or 4 years to make a game. They can't make all of them. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, think about this. They actually can, but they can put it in one and make you a proper Avengers.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. I'm saying?
I don't
like you're gonna get all the key characters done first. For example, you got Spider-Man, right? You got Miles. You've seen the villains there. You got Venom, right? That's going to be introduced in part 2. Now, if you go further, you got Wolverine. What's Wolverine going to bring? Hulk, more than likely. That's going to bring, obviously, the X-Men, right? That's another set of characters. What do you do after this? You can either backtrack and scoop up some other characters, whether it be Black Panther.
I don't think they would
Daredevil.
backtrack. I think they would probably start making X-Men games at that point, because Spider-Man's been in the X-Men universe before, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah,
in the comic books, I believe.
Yeah. So I think they could safely bring him into the, because I think it makes more sense from like money wise to not negotiate anymore, because clearly you only got Insomniac really making these games. Are you just gonna put like 5,000 people working at Insomniac and make 10-15 different comic book games?
They talked about expanding them.
Yeah,
I can absolutely see it. Yeah,
but right now they're already making 2 games.
Yeah, I
See,
can
like that
definitely
was
see them doing that.
that's
so.
kind of my point. Like, there's only so many superhero games you can make simultaneously. I mean, I'm just saying.
No, you make Spider-Man, then you make Spider-Man 2,
I don't know,
Miles
though,
Morales, and then you make Wolverine, and then they a rumor to be making another game after Spider-Man 2 comes out.
Yeah.
And then the next game would be an iteration, a game with all those units together.
Mm-hmm.
That'd
And then
probably
you
be
keep
like
it
2030 when something like that would happen.
Yeah, and especially when you got the MCU writers from the MCU at Insomniac helping them with this as well. So,
and that's the biggest thing. People say, well, this isn't a big deal. I bet you if you went back to DC and you were talking to them when Iron Man 1 came out, and when, you know, they're trying all these little Marvel IPs that they did back in the 90s, and I bet you asked them, you know, are you scared that Marvel's going to make a cinematic universe of some sort? They probably would have told you no. But when they made that first Avengers, they tried. They're like, oh God, we got to make a Justice League or something. Like,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, right now you're seeing the beginning fruits of that type of universe for the gaming side. And right now, Microsoft has the opportunity to do something. Because here, I don't think it's going to be like a huge, massive thing where you can't combat it. But I do think it's going to be extremely massive. And it's going to be, that universe is by far the reason I own a PlayStation. And that's just my fear in the matter. Like, sooner or later, you have opportunities right now to act. But there will be a time where it will be too late. Because you got to build these things up. Even if they decided to do it when they start making these type of games, it's going to take another... You're going to have a DC moment with Microsoft where hopefully they wouldn't, but naturally, if you want that kind of results, you have to take that kind of results to make a game. Sony started in 2018 with the original Spider-Man. Probably we won't see something like this till like 2030. That's like 12 years of preparation time. At that time, does Microsoft really have 12, 5, 10 plus years to get that same result? Probably not. So you see DC trying to rush out, a DC universe when they ain't really been able to do it because they want what Marvel has fought for and grinded for decades to get. And they want it now. And I just don't know if Microsoft is going to be able to pivot correctly if it does happen. So I guess we'll get to the main event of the evening. PlayStation and Call of Duty. Okay, so this is pretty much what happened. This is the Cliff Notes. I don't know exactly. Maybe you two gentlemen could educate me 100% on the little
you
factors.
You don't even know your topic?
Well, I know the topic. I just don't know all the little details.
You don't know all the details about your topic?
But I expect you to show me the details.
Now we have to show you how to do it.
Yes, BitCloud. You was 30 minutes late. I was expecting you to take that 30 minutes that you was late and educate yourself to educate me. But pretty much what happened is, there's an organization that goes around when companies are being bought, merged, and they decide whether or not it's going to affect companies from, competing. Well, this company's doing the process that apparently is normal, where they ask competitors, what would this purchase or merger, it's not a merger, but what would this purchase affect this industry? Because a lot of these people probably don't know the gaming industry like that, which is kind of crazy. You would go to Microsoft's biggest competitor and ask for their input. Obviously, most likely they're not going to be real with it, man. Like that I don't know. What do you guys feel on that one particularly? Do you think that if someone went up to ask Sony if they think, because clearly Sony's best interest is to get this deal cut. So why would you ask the people that gain the most out of it being cut? I don't get that. What do you guys think about that first?
Well, they want the deal cut because they don't want Xbox to own Call of Duty. Clearly, Call of Duty is a very valuable IP to PlayStation, even though it's third party. It makes PlayStation hundreds of millions of dollars yearly. They said that
does
yearly.
More than that too.
Yeah. I mean, it's very valuable, and even though Xbox has already said that the game will remain multi-platform, it seems like they feel that Xbox Game Pass is a threat. They said game being full price. I'm paraphrasing here. A game being full price when you compare it to a service, yes, that will hurt those game sales. So they're just being honest. Like, look, man, we're concerned. Like, we talk trash and we say, yeah, they scared. The real word is concern to me. They're concerned. There's so many things that can potentially happen, and Call of Duty, they depend on it, man. They depend on it. They make lots of money from Call of Duty. And they said even if they tried to build their own Call of Duty, then they broke down. There's 1,200 developers each year on Call of Duty, with another 1,500 with publishing and whatever else. Is too big of a project for their studios to do. They said this is not my words. I am paraphrasing, but it's not my words. This is Sony words. And they say, yo, man, we just don't want to, we just really don't want to deal with this. We want things to remain how they are. And I mean, that's what I got from it. What about you guys?
I mean, when they flat out said that this game can determine who buy what console.
Yeah.
I pretty much told you flat out the significance of how big the deal is. And a lot of people are like, oh, I don't care about Call of Duty. I don't care about Call of Duty. But guess what? You forgot about one major thing about Call of Duty. Call of Duty is populated by what? Kids. Yep. These kids.
The casuals,
are the main ones buying these damn DLCs. They're the main ones on the zombies. They doing all that stuff. So Sony knows this. Now, the reason why I said it counts more than just money for Sony, if you look at their online like engagement numbers, most of that is through Call of Duty. That takes up a good chunk of it. Like when you look at just games online in general play, people play mostly COD on the console as it is. That's what casuals flock to. They'll go to that for Call of Duty. They'll go to the FIFAs or whatever, but that's about it. You'll have those few PlayStation games that'll break out. You'll have those ones that are guaranteed like Spider-Man, and then that's pretty much it. It's just like a rinse and repeat. It's the same thing. So the fact that they're like, yeah, I want things to remain the same, it's completely understandable. You don't want to deal with this, because the last thing Sony wants to ever see at an E3 or whatever show is Microsoft saying, by the way, play Call of Duty only on Xbox consoles.
Yeah,
like
that will hurt.
They don't want to see it.
Yeah.
They don't want to see that. They don't want to see, you pay $70 for us, right? For our end, you get less to feature. That's basically what's going to happen. That's basically how it's going to work. If we're talking about, if we talk about them keeping it on all platforms, they're gonna play this like chess at this point, where Sony is gonna be like, hey, yeah, $70 for the game according to Activision, right? Whatever they want, $70 for the game. Microsoft is gonna be like, yeah, $70 for PlayStation, but Game Pass users, it's free. By the way, you get maps, all the DLC, you get that.
Yeah.
First.
Wow, yeah.
I didn't
even think about that part.
And then you go to legacy titles. They're also here.
Yeah.
So you get everything for the low price of, let's say, $25, $30.
And you know what's funny? Let's say that, because supposedly PlayStation's working on like emulating the PS3. Imagine if they work on that, and now because Microsoft owns Activision, like, oh, you're not emulating Call of Duty. Like
they take them all off.
You can get these newer ones. That's fine, but we ain't you don't have our permission to emulate Black Ops 2, like that. That's Xbox. If your people want to play Black Ops 2 on a platform, we got a place for them.
We got a subscription for it.
Oh man,
I can see it though. Like you're gonna see a lot of that. Those plays, those strategic, underlining type of cuts. They're going to do it like whenever they get this stuff done. Microsoft's going to have some kind of counter to that going, okay, well, you got that. Okay. Don't expect these games to be on your list. They're going to be over here. But Sony's also going to probably do something regarding to the, like we saw earlier with the superhero licenses with Marvel games. So you're going to see a lot of them try to outwit one another in some capacity. Because again, they're all competing for one thing, market share. That's it.
Yeah.
They want that market share. And what was interesting about it too, when they talked about how Game Pass, because everybody likes to remind everybody because they don't know anything about numbers, but they'll say Game Pass is a flop. It's not doing anything. People are not in it. But then they said that 70% of the market over here in Brazil is on Game Pass. So it's like, well, And then also, because y'all forgot about this, Sony mentioned their competitor, which is PlayStation Plus Premium. They said it would take them a long time before they can catch up to something.
They said several years. Several years.
So let that sink in. Again, it's a lot of stuff. You know
you're right, man. Yeah, you're right, bro. They mentioned that. So that I agree with everything you said. Let's just be honest here. No console war stuff. No Dirk Griggly being an Xbox fanboy stuff. None of that stuff. Just look at what's going on. And Sony is admitting that it will hurt them if Xbox owns Call of Duty, even though the game is remaining multiplayer. It will hurt them. I know there was some PlayStation guys mad when they said that when Sony said, yo, we I forgot the word they used, but they said we can't make something that can rival Call of Duty.
We can't, we can't make a successor or something that can or replicate. We can't replicate.
Yeah. And people like, yo, you guys are Sony. You guys make the best games in the world. Yes, they do. They make great single player games.
Yeah, everybody has their own specialties.
Yeah.
Sony's good at the AAA budget single player games.
Absolutely.
Microsoft's good at multiplayer, right?
Yeah.
This particular developer is good at making one game, mind you, one game that drops yearly at this point, or probably every 2 years now, or right? I think it's every 2 years. But they're good at making this one game that drops every 2 years with a different number attached to it, and this game is guaranteed to sell billions or make billions.
Bro,
that's where they're at.
PlayStation best-selling game pretty much every year is COD. Yeah. Now, I'm not just talking about because it's a multiplayer. No, just PlayStation, their best-selling game every year is COD. That's how important
COD
it is.
Or GTA, whenever time those drop, it's those two games. Those games are always in the top 10. They all,
man. Even if they could, Call of Duty is overly entrenched so that no rival, no matter how relevant, can catch up. So they're pretty much saying, because they broke down how many people develop the game every year. Like I said earlier, 1,200 people work on each version and another 1,500 are involved in publishing and distribution. Call of Duty is a huge game, massive game. And so Sony's kind of like, hey, man, we're not ready for this yet. Now, like we know they have Bungie, they own Bungie now, but like they said, it would take time for them to build something comparable to Call of Duty.
Which is why I believe you're just going to see legacy games that we've mentioned before. This is why Insomniac tweeted about them and they stopped, ironically, because I kept covering it, but they stopped talking about it or tweeting about it, but we know what's happening, right? Yeah. We saw SOCOM be mentioned. So Resistance, SOCOM are definitely going to come back at some capacity. Killzone is definitely gonna have to come back into at this point, because the reason why I say it has to is because they need shooters in this category. You see what I'm saying? They need them. It's that simple.
And they know they need them. That's why they got a Bungie and they're doing some live service games.
Exactly.
So you're right.
They didn't buy Bungie for no damn Destiny. They bought it for expertise for multiplayer. That's why Neil Druckmann is so advocated on saying Factions 2 is going to be the biggest thing they've ever done in terms of how expansive they've done it, because again you have the expertise of Bungie helping you with these servers and you got the team going all out with multiplayer, so that has potential if it's done right to be good for them. But will it be the game that, let's say that's their Gears of War or multiplayer game, is that going to be it? You know what I mean? Is that going to be the breakout game? We don't know yet.
Right.
Really don't know, but I would really be a betting man to say SOCOM would be the one that really pushes that entire thing forward, but we'll see.
Yeah.
See, let's get this $5 super chat real quick. I got a $5 super chat from Gamer by Choice. Appreciate the generosity, man. If I were the devs at PlayStation first party, I would be saying, what the F you mean we cannot compete with COD? That was a slap in the face. I don't, okay.
I don't think they really meant they couldn't compete. Yeah.
I was, the way I read that is they were saying we can't replicate COD.
Yeah. From a sales standpoint, they can't.
They can make COD lookalikes, COD clones, but they can't recreate the COD name. That's what I saw.
That's exactly what they said. Cause hold on, like Addict, before you go, they also said even like a game if they could, like they did make something similar to it, players will be unlikely to switch.
Yep.
They said they will be unlikely to switch to an alternate game as they would lose that familiarity. Or I cannot say that word. Familiarity. Yeah, those skills and even the friends they made playing the game. Even in weaker years like 2021, COD still managed to outperform most games by a considerable margin. So they're saying even if they made something like a new IP that was comparable to COD, most people wouldn't switch because COD is what they know. That's how I took that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
COD's that simple formula. It's that simple formula. People just, there's nothing else they do. They always find some way to add new mechanics, right? But they always keep the core gameplay.
Yeah.
The same. It's the same gameplay.
And they love it, bro. They love it.
Oh, there you go.
It's like I said, I don't think people realize how big COD is. Like
they don't. Like a lot of people moved on from it. That's the problem. But the thing is, y'all moved on from it, and like a whole new generation has amplified it even more. And that's the thing about Call of Duty.
Facts, bro.
Like I could say it's dead all day. Like I'm like, well, Call of Duty, it will never be the same since what, Black Ops 2? But
still selling like crazy every year.
Like dude's like, Warzone saved the franchise. I'm like, I don't care about Warzone. Like, it's good. I'm like, okay, enjoy Warzone. I'm not playing it.
It's like I said.
Well, what's your thoughts, Addict?
I think it's hilarious.
Addict's a mannequin. He don't want to talk.
I think it's hilarious.
Oh, now it's hilarious.
Yeah,
now it's hilarious. Now it's hilarious. Now
it's always been hilarious. I never said it wasn't. Look, man, the fact that Sony comes out there, front stage and center, and says we can never, in a million years, make a Call of Duty replica. We could try to gimmick that shit, but we ain't never gonna do that shit. Like, I love it. Like, it's funny. Like it's like literally coming up there and admitting defeat before you even try to admit defeat. Like, you didn't even step on the battlefield. You sitting there. It's like at least Leonidas when he went at the Persians. I think that's who he was fighting. We're gonna go with the Persians. But when he had the 300, he's like, we gonna sit here. You gonna kill us, but we going down for fight. PlayStation like, nah, we good. We ain't going on that battlefield. Like, we know we ain't fighting that person. We know we ain't beating them. And I love it. I love when PlayStation admits defeat. Because look, PlayStation just ain't admitting defeat. They're telling their PlayStation fanboys to lower their weapons. This isn't a fight we can win.
Oh, man.
Man, the days relying on that game are over as a crutch. Or a clutch, or as a crunch.
Yeah, for PlayStation,
Yeah,
Microsoft. What's funny is Microsoft is making PlayStation get off that bicycle, and they're like, "Oh, that's too small for us, man. We're going to have to make another bicycle." Microsoft just getting on the bike, but they're going to buy another bike because PlayStation can't. They done use that bike to death. Like, it's just like, look, like. It's like I said, I don't put too much into this. When it comes to this, I do feel like they were talking mainly about the name of Call of Duty, not, the first-person games that they make. I do feel like that, it is weird that they went to someone like Sony. Like, I can understand going to people that benefit from Microsoft, and I can understand. I don't get going to them or going to the people that don't benefit. Like, it's just like, I can EA. Understand them talking to them. Ubisoft, understand them talking to them. Even Nintendo to a point. I still think that's a little bit interesting, but Nintendo isn't really in that console market anymore. You know what I'm saying?
I really know.
But to go to Sony and be like, yo, we know you marketing this game, and we want your input on whether or not you think it's fair for us to let them buy them so they can disarm you. like. I don't get that. That's the biggest thing. Like, how you gonna do that? I felt like you could talk to everybody but PlayStation, because I don't think you could take their opinion on it in any way, shape, or form, because A, they're in the same console selling thing that usually Microsoft's in, and B, they have the marketing for the game of their biggest game they're trying to buy. Like, so to me, anything they say is it's like the water's tampered with. Like, that's the part that kills me. Did you guys see Xbox's response to that?
Oh.
Yeah, apparently.
Oh yeah. I saw it.
That was hilarious.
What
that was hilarious.
They pretty much said I don't have it up verbatim, but they pretty much said, well, PlayStation took away Spider-Man, some other games. Pretty much this is a business. This is competition.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me try to find the actual quote. hey, hey man, what is this Eric the Beard guy in here crying about? He's saying Sony didn't say what? What did Sony say about COD? That's false, Addict. What are you talking about?
Well, look, I'm not. Well, I guess he was saying that.
Do you research?
They can't
I was
compete with
reading
it.
from the Push Square article verbatim.
No, it's not that. I think he's saying that they didn't lie, so why would I not take their opinion valid? Like,
Oh, okay.
well, but if you look at it, they said that. I'm not saying that they're lying about what they said. I'm saying that Sony is biased enough and PlayStation's biased enough where why did they even go to them in the first place with that conversation? That's what I'm saying. Like, Sony clearly didn't, you know, like speak ill matter. We don't know what was really said. We just know what they quoted. But it's just like, to me, you don't go, let's say Bungie. Do you go to Xbox and ask them, yo, you think it's right if we let them buy Bungie? I don't think that makes sense.
Oh, okay. So
like, I think you go to more like third-party people, maybe publishers, you know, developers too. You can speak to developers, but to go to the number one competition of that brand and ask them, and not only are they the number one competition of that brand in that industry, they also have the marketing to the biggest game that the company's trying to buy. So that, to me, it just felt like there was too much bias to go to Sony in any way, shape, or form for this particular deal.
What Xbox said, they said Sony and Nintendo have strong and differentiated offerings, including their own exclusive titles. For example, IDC has identified that key Sony exclusive titles in 2018 include God of War and Marvel Spider-Man, in addition to other prominent titles such as Last of Us and Uncharted. These titles partly reflect Sony's vertical integration. For example, Sony's film studio owns the rights to Spider-Man, but also its broader strategy of obtaining rights that make third-party games exclusive to its console. So they're saying Sony in the past, they have their own exclusives, and also they've taken third-party games and made them exclusives, a la Final Fantasy.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
we
yeah.
most likely, you know, especially with the rumors that looks like they might be buying Square Enix soon. You know, if that does come true, we never going to get a PlayStation game. I mean, a Final Fantasy game, and I think that
You don't deserve it. You don't buy it.
I mean, I buy it. I don't know about you. Maybe you don't buy it. You know,
I'm
we
being
can have
petty.
that conversation.
Don't buy it. Don't buy it.
Like, just because you don't buy games don't mean nobody don't buy games.
Don't buy it. Don't
You
buy
know
it.
that
Don't
that
buy
mindset, Dirt, where they say the cheater's always going to accuse the other one of cheating.
You
You know, maybe the person that don't buy the games is going to be the one that doesn't buy games that act like I don't buy games. You know, I buy games. Dirt buys games. King plays Game Pass games, but he still pays for that $10 subscription. So he even buys. What are you doing, Bit? What are you doing, BitCloud?
I play everything.
You play everything. I noticed you said play everything. You didn't say I buy everything. So I guess you just pirating.
Oh, I
everything.
do. He's up fired everything.
Nah, it's jokes.
You
Like,
wish.
you know, when it comes down to it, I think that it makes sense that why they went to some of these people. Like Sony, I can understand. Some people did say some stuff in the chat that like kind of maybe a little bit open up with the PlayStation being asked. Maybe ask them how their business would change if that were to happen. I still don't feel like, because of the biasness, even asking questions like that, like you could easily say, well, my company, like, it depends on what kind of company it is. If it's a proud company, like a Japanese company or something like that, you know, they might try to act like, nah, nothing wrong. You know, they just shot a hole in our ship. And, you know, it's sinking a little bit, but we fine. Like, I feel like maybe that's okay. But to me, the biggest thing I'm looking at is just like, you know, what did EA say? What did Ubisoft say? Because keep in mind, EA, Ubisoft, and, you know, Activision, they were competitors more than the big three. They were competing with third-party platforms. And keep in mind, they're also competing with the platforms. Okay, who's going to get this one? Who's giving you for this one? So stuff like that's going on too. I'm curious what EA's got to say. EA probably jumping up and down. We don't got to worry about them anymore. Like,
well, they said every other publisher they went to was okay with it except for Sony.
that's because Sony has the most to lose.
Yeah, they had the most to lose. Absolutely.
Exactly. It's going to be interesting to see what they do because they formed that capital alliance with From Software. They bought shares in the company. It's like 1%, 2% in the company. So I don't know what they're going to do. But
we'll see, man.
It's a wrap at this point. You need to go back and get those classics and remake them. And
let me ask you a question, Big Cloud, because you're a PlayStation guy. Why do you think, just your opinion, why do you think Sony stop focusing on some multiplayer titles last generation? Because I mean, we know they do single player games incredible, but why do you think they stop focusing on multiplayer titles? Because in the PS3 generation, they seem to have a lot more multiplayer titles. I mean, well, they had some last gen, you know, like The Last of Us Remastered or Uncharted 4, Killzone. So, like, what's your answer on that? What do you think? Just your opinion.
Problem with the PS3 gen when they were doing it. You gotta remember, PlayStation 3 games hardly sold first party wise. They hardly. You probably have some that sold like 4-5 million. You weren't hitting the 10s and 15s and 20 million that you're hitting now. You weren't hitting that back then. So, you know, when you look at it, and that's why I loved about the PS3 gen, because they were really taking a risk. This was Sony taking a risk to get you to come to that platform. You know what I mean? They were really being creative, throwing everything at you. It just I guess they just found out, man. They couldn't sell. And when you go to the PS4 gen, it was a lot better. A lot of that leverage they had now because, you know, the DRM situation and Microsoft and doing
the casual
free publicity.
chose the PS4. The casual chose PS4. Yeah.
Well, not just that though. Microsoft gave them the best publicity.
Oh, absolutely.
At that time,
absolutely.
I mean, when dudes telling you if you don't like it, deal with it. I mean,
they
gonna go to the other platform. So when you had all that, and you know, you had a few games coming back with multiplayer. The thing was this though. What does Sony really do? You notice if you want to be like realistic, look at the meetings. Let's look at the Call of Duty, the meeting where the dude from Call of Duty came out on stage and said, "Yeah, by the way, guys, all the DLC is exclusive to PlayStation. Well, it comes out exclusively first." Once that deal was made, they stopped caring about multiplayer because again, that's what they knew. They had the biggest, you know, third-party game multiplayer-wise on their side. Plus, they had the rights.
They
to
had the
DLC.
mind share. Yeah, plus they had the mind share also. Yeah.
Yeah, because beforehand, Microsoft, if you think about it, Microsoft relied heavily on that with the 360. Heavily. And they just had custom consoles. They had Halo, Gears, and Forza, right? They had Halo, Gears, and Forza. But it was mostly the Call of Duty thing that made you go, yo.
Hey, let me say this. They had 2 straight E3s. They started off with Call of Duty as their first game, bro. Like, they was treating Call of Duty like it was a first.
And you know what's funny? If you look at it, like Sony has low-key just said we done with Call of Duty. Like we still have it. It's like that weird part of the relationship where the relationship's over, but both people acting like it's not, and like they both low key looking for new people. But like when you're looking at the actual relationship, it seems fine, but behind closed doors, they hate each other. So it's sitting there like
they're not doing the red carpet thing.
Like it's like equivalent to like Sony watching their wife, which is Call of Duty, go over there and mingle with Microsoft and come back acting like that shit didn't just happen. You know what I'm saying? And they're just sitting there looking for it, and they just waiting for them to formally break up. Like,
that's why, you know, again, it's gonna be interesting to see what Bungie brings to the table with the next Destiny, how they advertise Destiny and how they go about it too.
Oh, I already tell you exactly how they're going to advertise Destiny because they already did it once before. What's funny is at the beginning of last generation, Microsoft couldn't even acknowledge the fact that the Destiny was coming on
they could.
They had to do like weird stuff, like
that cologne bottle. They had to do that cologne.
It said Destiny awaits or something like that.
It was raw.
I see that happening. And you know, when it comes to everything in that, I don't think that, you know what we should be worried about more than this? How are we in August and we still don't have a date for Sony's yearly like E3 type of show. Like we in August.
Well, I did a video
I think it'll come
on
soon.
that. I think it's gonna happen, but at the same time, I don't think it will happen.
Oh, you don't think it might not happen?
After that issue, I don't know if y'all saw it. But basically, there was like a issue involving a laptop that got stolen.
Really?
It was on
The snitch
Reddit
has
and whatnot.
it. The snitch has it.
Somebody had
Yeah.
it's like over 100 gigs of data for their upcoming stuff was on
Oh,
that
wow.
laptop. So basically, everything for the Last of Us remake that got shown to
Right.
by Shrapnel, I think it was Shrapnel Nick.
Yeah.
He got sent that was from that laptop.
Mm.
That was from the
Uh-oh.
files from that laptop. And guess what? Another game that was mentioned on that was God of War.
Right.
I don't know what they're gonna do for this. And a lot of people were trying to dismiss, saying it's not happening. But I'm like, a lot of people are coming out saying that this is more likely the case of why they're quiet and why they're being very, very cryptic now than they've ever done. Because I don't know how that happens. So where you lose a lot, but
Oh, that sucks, bro. That sucks.
Do you guys think that that's concerning if they don't have a show?
no, but the content they dropped alone is enough.
I don't know
Well,
about that, man.
I-
Dude,
I-
what
you know,
do we
I would
really
say,
know
yeah.
about the roadmap of Sony right now? We know Wolverine.
That's gonna be 2024 probably.
Spider-Man
Spider-Man is
2.
2023. That's next year.
And that's all.
Spider-Man's next year. Wolverine is 2024. You got
You really think Wolverine's coming out in 2024?
at this rate with Insomniac, I can see it.
Nah.
Probably with Insomniac. I'll
See,
say
here's the
probably.
thing though, but like,
But what about what else?
I
Like,
see Wolverine 2025. That's where I see Wolverine.
that's
Because here
possible. You
they
never
have
know.
to make a new battle system for Wolverine. They can't have him be like sliding or on buildings and stuff like it was. Like he's got to have a new battle system.
Yeah, unless they're going with like the Logan style third person, where it's like dark, gritty, and guts everywhere, which would be kind of interesting.
So what besides that, they supposedly the way that they were and someone said I strayed away from Wolverine. No, I talked about Wolverine. Thank you. The way that they're going through this stuff, it looks like Egypt, because we thought that Kratos was going to go to Egypt after this game, but the way that chick on Twitter worded it kind of made it seem like he's going to Egypt in this game. So it's going to be interesting how they do that. But like normally, here's the reason I'm a little skeptical on what's going on with Sony and PlayStation. Normally they have no problem coming out and say, yeah, this is in 2027. This is in 2026. Like obviously not the dates, but they have no problem coming out there and just dropping mic after mic and say these games are coming out. We don't know when. We don't know what you're not going to get too much info out of them. But they're coming out. That's our roadmap. Leave us alone. We'll see you next year with gameplay to one of them, and then walk off the stage. They haven't really done that. Like we've seen Spider-Man and Wolverine. I see Wolverine would be a little bit more in that vein because I think that game's probably 2020, maybe late 2024, early 2025. But as far as that, this is the first time since I've been covering gaming, which is like 2014ish, that we don't know a lot about Sony's games at all. Like at all. Like we don't know what the majority
projects.
We don't know the majority of those 10-player games, which they're all. I think some of them are probably out, like Gran Turismo. Those games as a service games. We don't know the majority of those. We don't know what the majority of their actual studios are making. It's weird. Like, and they're the kind of company that you would think it's a grand slam. They're going to go make Ghost of Tsushima 2, but they're also the company that say, "Gotcha," and make a new IP. So it's interesting that people keep saying they don't have enough to show, but I'm sitting here screaming, what have they shown to not have enough to show? You know what I'm saying?
Well, let's be honest. Well, like the last 2 years, their show dropped in September. So it's early August. I'm assuming they're going to announce it sometime this month. Now, if that doesn't happen, okay, now we can start. Okay, let's see what's going on. I'm just like, we're just in that. It's August 3rd. Let's just wait to see. I'm assuming they're going to let people know this sometime this month about the show.
Yep.
Like I said, if they don't,
Yeah, let's be real. Okay, Dirt. I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
We finish September, August, and we in September, like mid-September.
Yeah.
Are you gonna clown them for not making a show? Be honest.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna be absolutely honest with you. If we make it to August 31st and they haven't announced the show, I'm gonna have some fun.
Big Cloud,
but I'm expecting them to though. I'm expecting them to.
Big Cloud, would you be disappointed if they didn't have a show this year?
No. I have tons of games to play.
Oh, you sound like an Xbox fan right now.
I will feel a certain way because, like, the last show we had focused strictly on VR. Here's the funny thing about the VR show. We didn't get the pricing for VR at all, nor do we even know when it's dropping.
I'm thinking it's going to be 500, bro. What you think?
I've been saying that too, around 5. Like, just for the way they've been pushing it, cinematic modes, the way the quality is. The quality is really good in this.
Yeah.
Right, let me get these super chats.
I could definitely see 5.
Yeah, you got a few, bro.
$2 super chat from Spartan Ghost 17. Sony crying with Jason Schreier.
Oh no!
Down bad. He's saying Sony is down bad because of what's going on. Another $2 super chat from Spartan Ghost 17. Sony literally threw their teams under the bus. So I guess he's pretty much saying, yo, you saying all your teams are not as, none of them can make something as quality as Call of Duty, which I get it. I think you can literally interpret that as in many ways as you want. Me particular, I don't think they were really talking about the Call of Duty as a whole. They were talking about the brand. I think that's what they're talking about.
It's an established brand, and it's going to be hard to...
It's a hard game. Like, let's be real here.
Yeah.
Besides Call of Duty, the only other games that I could see eventually hitting that thrive is like a Valorant.
Is Rockstar games.
Yeah.
like GTA Online, yeah.
Well, GTA I think is even above Call of Duty at this point. Like,
it is. Yeah, it is.
Because look, sure, GTA don't drop games, but they have a very respected thing. I'm saying like first-person shooter. I think Valorant could give Call of Duty a run for its money. Sure, it's not. It probably don't make as much money by far, but I do think it's got that respect that Call of Duty has.
On the PC side.
Yeah, on the PC side. I was really annoyed a little bit. Shout out to we have 300 people in the chat, man. Hit that like button. Let's get that up to 150.
Hit that like button.
Let's get that to 150. I was annoyed that when they did all that stuff at that event with Microsoft that they didn't announce Valorant coming to the console. That's what I thought was going to happen.
Too. Yeah.
You would never catch me in Valorant. Let me point that out right now. I will never be in Valorant because it is one of the most sweaty games in existence. I don't go there to pull my hair. As you can see, my hairline is pretty far back there. I don't need to pull any hair out. It's coming out by itself. So I'm definitely not going to...
Addict values his beard, people.
Yeah, I do value my beard, man. I do. I need to trim it up, man. It's getting a little out of hand, but that's besides the fact. We got a $5 super chat from Dorian
Gray or something.
Dorian Grays. I can't wait for the first COD game on PlayStation 5 after. I already know this is gonna be messy, and I ain't finished reading it. Fire it up, and there's just a big Game Pass logo. Yo, imagine if you loaded up Call of Duty, and then first off, it's gonna have whoever's making it, and then probably the second screen is gonna be Activision and Xbox at the bottom.
Xbox Game Studios, yeah. Because even like when I played the show, seeing that PlayStation Studios pop up on the Xbox, hey man, it is what it is at this point.
Oh my God, man. Besides the fact, I definitely, appreciate you guys' super chats. Definitely funds the show.
Damn, Joker comes out in 2024.
Yeah, I saw that.
Joker 2.
Oh,
the movie.
Joaquin Phoenix. Yeah,
that's cool. It's like I said. I think the future looks bright. We're gonna go ahead and close the show off. First thing I want to ask you guys is, what games are you looking forward to in the next 6 months? Because I'm looking at the beginning of next year and the end of this year, and it's pretty stacked. Like, it really is. Like, what games are you guys particularly looking for? Keep in mind, we still don't have a date for Harry Potter. That's kind of crazy. Like,
that's also on my radar as well. But the game I'd say that I'm like the most hyped for to end this year in general, it would be Callisto Protocol. For sure.
That was
good. And then the beginning, definitely Dead Space remake. I love what they're doing with that. And then we also have obviously Harry Potter, but Resident Evil 4, man. Resident Evil 4 remake.
Damn, that's another.
Those
You know, I never finished that game in the past, man. I never.
You never beat Resident Evil 4? Man,
Oh.
kick him off the pedal.
Listen,
man.
hold on. Let me tell you something.
The first
Resident Evil. Let me tell you something. The first, I'm a different type of gamer nowadays, right? I didn't finish a lot of games in my 20s. I'm a different type of gamer. The first Resident Evil game I completely finished was 7. Then I finished, Village. Then I finished, the remake 2 and 3. So I just didn't finish games back then, but I do now, and I'm looking forward to the remake, Part 4 remake. So I never finished it back then. For
I think you'll
reason.
like it. Like here's the thing about Resident
I know I
Evil.
will. Yeah.
Resident Evil 4. People say, "Oh, it's more action than horror." Like people really sitting here acting like a zombie apocalypse is going to be nothing but horror the whole time during that. Like zombie apocalypse is going to be a lot of horror towards the opening scenarios of a zombie apocalypse. When you're in cities, when you're walking through stuff, when you're not trying to get killed, it's not going to stay that way. First off, diseases mutate. Look at what we're in now. They mutate all the time. You're going to see stuff like this actually happen if something like this were to happen. Sure, not every way that happens in Resident Evil. And I can understand why some people didn't really gravitate towards it because it wasn't more of the horror aspects. But Resident Evil 4 is by far the best Resident Evil. And that's just my opinion. But here's the thing. I can say Resident Evil 2 and 3 are solid, good games. Great games, even. But to me, 4 just had so much.
Resident Evil 4 had a lot of depth to it. You know what I mean? Even the fight with Krauser, like the blade fight with Krauser and all that stuff. It's like, dude, this is. They were just having fun with the lights at that point. It was a lot of dope moments in 4. That's what I'm hyped for, though. I'm hyped to see what they do because I'm wondering, is Ashley going to be the same like she was in the original? It doesn't look like she's going to be the same. Like they're going a completely different route.
Pretty much Ashley Dart was like just someone that you had to protect. Like the typical damsel in distress.
I played it. I actually made it when it finally came out on the PS2 after the GameCube exclusivity. I bought it. I played it up until the point where you actually get Ashley. And I don't know why. I just kind of stopped playing. I'm not sure why. But
so you probably at the church where you had to get in.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at. That's exactly where I'm at. Yeah, I just stopped playing or something. I don't know what happened.
It's good. I think you'll like it, man. I think you should.
I think I will too because listen. Let me tell you something. I enjoyed 7, Village, the 2 remakes. I enjoyed all of them. So I finished all of them. So I'm definitely looking forward to
Cholesterol Protocol. That's going to be a good one.
Absolutely.
Wait till you see Salazar. That's what I'm getting ready to see how
Salazar?
they did. His design, like the little kid who's basically like 90 years old, but he's
I remember him.
It's going to be good, man. I have a lot of hope for Resident Evil 4. I do.
Yeah, I actually forgot it was coming.
Dead Space remake in like what, February or what? Like March, something like that.
Yeah. Dead Space is February.
We have a good 6 months of gaming, like a really good 6 months of gaming. And then we got God of War in November, as long as they don't get pushed back.
Yep. Actually, no, I'm sorry. Dead Space remake is January, I think.
It's January, I believe.
January.
Cholesterol Protocol in December.
Cholesterol is December, yeah. That's right.
I think this might be like one of the best couple
6 months
that we've had in gaming in a while.
Because
I ain't gonna lie to you guys, this year been kind of rough for me, man.
It's definitely been dry.
I've been having to like dive into the ocean, pick up every rock, like look for any gym whatsoever I could play that's mildly entertaining. Like, you got myself so bad I'm playing 16-bit games and I'm not towards that area. But I can say that a lot of the 16-bit games that are made modern days are killing it. They're so good.
Well, with me, man, me being a bot, first party has obviously been dry this year.
Xbox people definitely got to figure out some unique ways.
Yeah, I've been playing. I did finish As Dusk Fall. I enjoyed it. It's a movie pretty much, but I enjoyed it. I finished that. I've been trying to play finish Larger Judgment, how I mentioned earlier. I went back to play The Last of Us 2 because when I finished it in 2020, I was just kind of rushed through it just to review it. So I rushed through it, but this time I'm taking my time with it. And man, but I'm like you guys. I'm excited for Modern Warfare 2 because they're claiming this is going to be one of the best Call of Duties ever. I'm a COD campaign guy. I don't really play the multiplayer too much. Some PlayStation guy, he pulled my file. Like, Derek, you don't even play the multiplayer. Look at I said, shut up, punk. I play the campaigns, right? I'm not much of a COD multiplayer, but I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to God of War Ragnarok. Callisto Protocol. That might be my most exciting game this year besides God of War. And next year, hey man, Resident Evil 4 remake. I'm agreeing with everything you guys said.
They sold me with the
Dead Space
gameplay
remake.
alone.
Yeah,
So
man.
I'm like,
And-
damn, I haven't seen game this like gritty in a long time. Like,
It looks
they
good,
just-
man. Them kills, oh goodness, yeah.
Like when he
that's
got in the
exactly-
reactor, he was
Rock
stuck.
out
You see
with
like the concerns.
Bro,
like,
that was crazy.
That was good.
That
I'm
was
like,
crazy.
okay, they really captured his face. Like, oh, this dude's like,
It
no,
looks dope.
I'm about to go into this reactor.
It looks dope. And as you guys see, my background, I love arcane games. I don't know if it's going to come out the first quarter of 2023.
I think it will.
I love arcane games, and I can't
you'll-
wait for Redfall. Bro.
I think you'll probably see a
good. Just needed more
Redfall.
polish.
I think you might see a
Redfall.
Redfall and Starfield release date at the Video Game Awards.
Oh, that'd be fire.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm expecting Deathloop to drop this year for Xbox.
Oh,
Like
that would
I
be
said,
good.
I love
And actually, that'll
arcane
be
games.
soon. Like next month
yeah,
if it happens.
yeah, because they said they can't mention nothing because PlayStation had the year exclusivity.
Yeah.
I believe it was Tim. I believe Tim Dog said on Twitter. He said he heard that it's definitely coming this year, but they can't mention anything because PlayStation had the year exclusive deal. I'm definitely looking forward to all of that,
How
man.
much-
So let's go.
How much smoke Xbox is gonna have the moment that exclusivity ends? Oh, Deathloop's over on here. And watch. They have been having Arcane work on like a huge expansion for Deathloop, and knowing damn well that the game probably isn't gonna do that well, like sales wise, just so they can say the best place to play Deathloop is on our platform.
Exactly.
All right, we're going to go ahead and end this, man. I appreciate everyone coming through. We had up to almost 315, 20 people in here. We had a great show. First thing I want to say is I appreciate for, all for the panel members to come here. They come in here every week to entertain you guys. Dirk Griggity, where can people find you at? What do you got going on?
Nothing much, man. We had a good podcast a couple nights ago. Had a lot of fun. Just check out my channel, man. I'm a pro Xbox channel. We do talk a lot of trash, but I don't hate PlayStation, of course. I do. I don't really care for the ponies too much, but it's all good, man. Just check out my channel when you guys get the chance.
Press Alpha Doubt.
And what's Big Cloud doing?
Big Cloud is playing games, chilling, but you can find him on this channel, Big Cloud Gaming. You can also find me at Twitch, Twitter, same thing, Big Cloud Gaming. Obviously, lordsgaming.net. Find me there. And IGN as one of the curators for playlists.
That's what's up. And it's like I said, I want to appreciate everyone coming through. What I am going to do is I have been messing a little bit with how the redirect features works. I want to highlight other content creators that I do feel like don't get the shine that they should. So after the podcast, it should be directing you to fame over there at Level 1 Gaming. I don't know if it's going to work. I think it's going to work. But I think it's like a 50-50 thing. So if you go over there, man, definitely, I don't know. We're about to find out. So definitely put in the chat, man. Tell them ILP Addict Show sent you, man. I hope, you know what? No, tell them Addict Show sent you, not ILP. Addict Show sent you. So I appreciate everyone coming through. And until next week, we out of here.